This is the Wheel of Time podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about the Wheel of Time Season 2, Episode 5, Damane.
Do you know why the Aes Sedai swear the three oaths in the first place? 1,000 years ago, a great king threatened to burn the tower unless we bound ourselves with the oaths. Our power didn't frighten him as much as our humanity. That's why the White Tower has so many rules and rituals and formalities. If we look inhuman and predictable, like the tides, men won't measure themselves against us. They have to tear us down.
Welcome back, fellow wheelies. It's the Wheel of Time podcast from TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Wheel of Time Season 2, Episode 5, Damane, I think, or Damane. I am one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow wheelies. Do you like to dance?
Mm-hmm.
I am your other Aiel host, John.
Very good. We are unfortunately splitting our group this week because Chris can't join us for this recording session on Wheel of Time, unfortunately.
He is being chased across Ireland by Lanfear as we speak, with multiple casualties along the way. Thankfully, not Chris.
Exactly. Otherwise known as nephews and nieces.
Yes.
Showing off his brand new baby to the nephews and nieces today. So can't join us for this one, but that's all right. We will go in depth into this episode. So much happening in episode 5 of the Wheel of Time. We're only 3 episodes left after this.
So yes, plenty of stuff going on here. Seeing more of the world as well with Falme. Enjoyed this episode.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I got through 2 full pages of notes for this episode because so much was going on. But we are going to crack into our spoiler-filled discussion about this episode. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, we'd love if you would. Pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. You can subscribe there to our main podcast feed where we're covering lots of other stuff. We're covering Star Wars Ahsoka at the moment, which is also in episode 5 this week. We will be staying with Prime Video for the spin-off of The Boys, Gen V, coming up towards the end of September. I think it starts on the 29th of September, I think it is.
Yes, we are getting into crazy hour, or crazy season. Halloween plus a ton of shows being released, as Derek said. But yes, Gen V will be coming up at the end of September.
We still can't talk about it yet. But it's very different from the other shows that we're covering at the moment, let's say that. But very similar in the boys' world.
Good stuff.
Yeah, one other thing to mention, you can, of course, send in your feedback for our coverage of Wheel of Time or any of the shows that we're covering. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And later on in the episode, we will be giving out our 5th question in our Wheel of Time Tavern quiz. Just gather together all the answers to the 8 questions at the end of the season. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with the answers, and you could get your hands on some Wheel of Time goodies.
Yes, indeed, you may.
And
possibly Rand al'Thor.
We will not be sending Rand al'Thor attached to a wheel out to your home, I promise you that. But if you have missed any questions so far, you can pop to the website at tvpodcastindustries.com, and all the questions are up there under pub quizzes for all the pub quizzes that we've done.
Yes, but let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion. Derek, take it away.
Well, of course, the show is based on the book series by Robert Jordan. The showrunner for the show is Rafe Lee Judkins. This episode was written by Rohit Kumar, an executive story editor and writer on Walking Dead World Beyond in the past.
Excellent. Stepped up his game, I guess.
Well, it was a really good spin-off, I thought, World Beyond, especially the second season.
I have no idea.
It was really good.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's just because Walking Dead did seem to stumble on for a long time, even with its spin-offs. Just like the zombies, I guess.
Well, yes. But Daryl Dixon series just started, based in France. Daryl Dixon in France, weirdly.
Yes.
But it is a fun one. We watched the first episode of that.
That was good. But Daryl was always good.
He was. The episode was directed by Maya Vervilo, a very recognizable name for listeners to TV Podcast Industries, because in the past she's directed 2 episodes in season 1 of Picard and has directed lots of other Star Trek as well. But for ourselves, she has directed 2 episodes of Gotham, and you'll recognise the names,
back
John.
in the day.
Yeah, the Primal Riddle and
good.
Mandatory Brunch Meeting. 2 excellent episodes of Gotham.
Definitely. And we always like a good mandatory brunch meeting.
We do. But you know why that has special significance this weekend, John? Bet you don't know this.
No, I won't.
Yeah. 10 years ago, this weekend, we had our first discussion in the Dropping Well about starting a podcast. Do you know how I know that?
Go on.
Because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. premiered 10 years ago next week, and we discussed covering that as our first show.
I remember that now.
Yeah, it took us a couple of months to set up, and our first show ended off being Gotham, and we've never covered Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it was this weekend, 10 years ago that we started.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Yes. Gee, I need to sort of get my memory back into order, I think.
There you go. Yeah, just come to me, John. I'll remember all these things for you. It's all good. But yeah, 10 years, and it's just the 2 of us this week as well, which is ironic, or maybe fateful that the 2 of us are on this episode after 10 years.
Maybe.
It's kind of cool. Anyway, let's get into our discussion about Wheel of Time. Enough of looking back at the past. Let's just look back one day to when this episode was released. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for The Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 5, Damane?
Sure. Perrin and Hopper leave Elyas to save his pack, Loial and the Schencheans. But on the way, Perrin is directed by Hopper to the town Atuan Mill, where they were previously attacked by the Synopsis forces. As he looks to find Uno to bury him, he meets an Aiel woman, Aviendha, and a man named Dain, who warns him off going near the Aiel. Perrin soon discovers that the town has been reclaimed from the Schenchean by the Whitecloaks, led by Dain, Bornhald, and Eamon Valda. Perrin decides to leave and en route releases Aviendha from her cage, but as they make their escape are surrounded by Whitecloaks led by Dain. In the ensuing fight, Aviendha shows her fighting prowess, but is forced to spare Bornhald's life by Perrin. As they make their way to Falme to save Loial, Aviendha pledges to help him rescue the others. Meanwhile, Lady Saroth is demoted for disobeying the orders of the Schenchean High Commander Turak, but Ishmael gains his favour by delivering him the Horn of Valere, a great weapon that will ensure victory for the Schenchean. As Ishmael and Saroth plot, he sends her out to receive his gifts of Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine from Liandrin. It becomes clear that Ishmael intends to use them to gain further favour in the Schenchean court, as they are destined to become the Damane. As the novices are handed over and Liandrin leaves, Elaine and Nynaeve manage to escape and are rescued from capture by Rima and Aes Sedai hiding in Falme. Egwene is leashed and presented to Turak by Saroth, who collars her, binding her to a Soldan. At Tar Valon, Verin arrives at the White Tower and, working with Yasika, investigates the disappearance of the 3 novice girls, which draws suspicion on Liandrin's cover story and leads Verin to evidence of the existence of the Black Arja at Tar Valon, Aes Sedai sworn to the dark. Elsewhere, Rand and Moraine escape Lanfear, fleeing back to Karain, and are taken in with Anaver and her son Barthanes, who is delighted to have his auntie back after 20 years. But Moraine's intention is to put a distance between themselves and Lanfear, realizing the danger that she has put her family in, until Anaver gives her sister some of Moraine's own advice that she once gave her. Moraine decides to stay at House Damodred and have Rand enter Telanriod, the realm of dreams, where he might be able to learn what Ishmael is planning. Upon entering, Rand finds himself immediately captured by a waiting Lanfear.
And it only took 1 week to get shirtless Rand tied to a wheel, John. That's what you asked for last week, didn't it?
It was. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
It certainly does. It's like as if they're listening to our episodes and come back. Because I had a complaint last week, didn't I? The only complaint I've really had this season so far about the fact that up on the subtitles on the screen, it came up and just said Old Tongue when Ishmael was doing his weave to get Lanfear free.
Yes, and also what Lanfear is probably going to use on Randall Thor.
Well, yeah, thousands-year-old tongue. But on this week's episode, I do want to compliment Prime Video because they did translate all of the Old Tongue in this episode. So
yes.
we had a scene where Lanfear and Ishmael are talking in Old Tongue, and it is all translated. So well done. Maybe if I go back and look at episode 4, that section will be translated. But Bugbear sorted in a week.
Yes, good stuff.
There you go. So 2 corrections on last week's episode. Let's get into our top spokes of the wheel for this episode. Spoke number 1. Perrin's pack.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, and I've really enjoyed the time spent with Perrin so far.
Me too.
In this season.
Yep.
I really like the arc, of his story. I mean, I loved it from the books as well. I loved Matt's as well, and it was interesting to see that Matt didn't appear
again
in this episode, but I guess he is also making his way to Falme, which is suddenly becoming the epicenter for events that will transpire in this season.
Well, yeah, we hear from Ishmael that that's where the final battle will take place.
Yes.
It's written in the skies over Falme, is his description of it.
In Tom Head.
Yeah,
yes.
So it looks like everybody's going to be converging on Falme.
I guess so, including the Whitecloaks that we see here as well, as Perrin looks to go and rescue Loial and the Shannarans that have been captured and sent to Falme.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting discussion with him and Elyas, where Elyas effectively has been leading him a merry dance, telling him he's going off to save Loial. In fact, I don't know whether he committed to that or whether Perrin just thought that's what they were doing, but it turns out they were turning all the way around and going back to the town that was attacked by the Schenchean, and where they were taking from. And he's suddenly kind of going, hang on a second, I thought this whole thing was about the two of us going and saving my friends. And Elyas telling him, well, they're not your pack. Your pack is now these wolves that are surrounded by you.
Yeah, and me, effectively.
Yeah. But as Perrin turns on him, so does the entire pack, pretty much. They all back up Elyas, so they're not his pack yet.
No, absolutely. And with the exception, I would suspect, of old cute Hopper.
Little cute Hopper.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that we're covering Ahsoka that has little cute Chopper and Wheel of Time that has little cute Hopper in it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's interesting that Perrin kind of rejects Elyas's notion here, effectively that you are going to become more and more wolf brother, and that means leaving humanity, civilization behind.
Yes.
They have that little conversation about, well, do you miss anything from your past life to Elyas? So I think that's really kind of interesting that ultimately, Perrin rejects Elyas's sort of want, really, or what he feels Perrin is going to do, which is become, deeply embedded within this pack, as a wolf brother.
Yeah.
It's not to say that Perrin's journey isn't going to be becoming a wolf brother, but it's the fact that he definitively calls out his pack, which are his mates from the two rivers.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because you do have that moment, with the conversation between Ishmael and Lanfear, where he talks about, Matt is naturally mine.
I love that he's born mine. He doesn't have to do anything to Matt. He doesn't have to change him over to the dark side. He's already a dark friend, even though he doesn't know it. Is kind of the way that seems like from Ishmael.
It does, but then he says, and Perrin will become more wolf than human, effectively.
Yeah.
So we don't need to worry about him. But here, in a sense, this is, as a Taviran that shapes the weave of the wheel, then, here is actually Perrin sort of standing against that notion that he will just simply be dictated as a wolf brother by removing himself from his friends who are human. So it's kind of an interesting little, not just a rejection of Elyas here, but in a sense putting a spoke into the wheel of what Ishmael assumes will happen.
I like it.
And I really like that as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, you get a lot from these books, or at least so far I've gotten a lot from these books and what's being translated here to the screen, that while there are prophecies and while there are destinies for characters called out in a lot of fantasy books, here in the Wheel of Time it seems to be people are being told what their destinies are and they're rejecting those destinies. They're rejecting the absolute definitive path for the way that they should live. And we have this again here with Perrin, where he's saying, I don't have to live like that. I already have a pack. If I can add to that pack with this group of wolves and with Elyas, fine, but I'm not rejecting my old friends because you're telling me I have to.
And there's a slight hint at that as well, back with Lanfear and Ishmael's conversation, where he asks about the Dragon Reborn. What is he like? That he is rejecting what people feel he should become. He is more kind of standoffish from that.
Exactly.
Again, so it is this bond between these Taveran from the Two Rivers that has the potential to weave the wheel differently from the prophecies that ultimately the Forsaken are going off.
Well, exactly. And he also mentions Nynaeve and Egwene, that one wants more power and one's trying to reject the power that they have. So again, this is all coming through the conversation. I thought that was actually a really good conversation. I would have put it in as a point on its own if we didn't have enough points to talk about in the episode, but I did really like that conversation where they lay out exactly his opinions of these kids. Yeah. It felt really intimate almost when he's talking about them. You know, the fact that he's calling them by their first names and saying, Matt's already mine. It's like he is already in their dreams. He's already infested these five people from the Two Rivers, these 5 kids from the Two Rivers.
Yeah, so, exactly. So really this is really good. And we come back to Atuan Mill.
Yes.
And here we get, a new meeting between Perrin and Aviendha, an Aiel warrior who has been captured and caged. Ultimately he's back there to effectively release Uno from a cage who's dead and bury him.
Yes.
Because Hopper has shown him this. And, it speaks to Perrin's character. He doesn't want to sort of leave Uno behind as well, even if it is just simply to bury him so he gets that proper burial like we saw previously en route where the Shannarans, even though it was a dark friend, buried that Shannaran, so in a sense he's picked up on what the leader of the Shannarans said to him in that moment.
Yeah.
But also we have here Perrin, uncomfortably reconnecting with the Whitecloaks.
Yes.
So from season 1, he is tortured by child Valda.
Yes.
And is seen to be this, he's this monster. It's the rejection of the religion of, personified that the Whitecloaks hold dear.
Yeah.
Particularly the questioners. Because, that's the other thing here. You see, we're also introduced to Dain Bornhald.
Yes.
And again, there's that difference there between Bornhald and Valda.
Yes.
Here. Even that Dain Bornhald is camouflage, he's hiding his white cloaks. It's only from a different kind of wolf that comes out. I guess some kind of poodle, I don't know, that helps Perrin to discover that actually the Whitecloaks are present now because they have forced the Seanchan out of that village.
Yeah, they couldn't hold the village, so the Whitecloaks took over. I know you're saying it was camouflage, but I was almost going, oh, that's how they keep the Whitecloaks clean as they travel through all these dirty towns and dirty forests across the land. But it is really interesting. I have to say there were moments with Dain Bornhald, even though he's the one that is leading the group that tries to take down Aviendha and Perrin. There's moments when I'm kind of going, oh, maybe he'll become an ally for Perrin in the future, or for the team from the Two Rivers, because he does seem to reject the ideas of Valda, and Valda's telling him effectively the only reason he has some respect is because of his father's name, and there will come a point that won't give him the respect within the Whitecloaks. Good to see the Whitecloaks back here anyway, because they were such big antagonists throughout the first season, and there's just something about them that feels
well, it's puritanical, isn't it? It's almost Spanish Inquisition level.
Exactly.
And that's why Valdara took exception to the form of Perrin and what he was, because it's like we have to have only purity.
Exactly.
It's really fanatical in that sense, and it's a great kind of thing to have here, because that also, like you say, you see that the Whitecloaks have these different factions anyway, but also different views, and so this was quite good being introduced to Dain Bornhald. Like his father is much higher up in the Whitecloaks.
Oh, right. Cool.
And that's why, Valdara in a sense is tiptoeing around. I guess he would be much more strict and discipline him than he would otherwise. But as well, again, there is that sense here that the Whitecloaks are on a campaign to deal with the Seanchan. I mean, we do hear the Lord Commander of the Seanchan admonishing, and we'll get to that later on in the podcast, but admonishing Lady Saroth because she overextended their reach in terms of their own sort of military campaign to sort of reclaim lands. So you have the sense that, yes, Tom and Head Falme are becoming the epicenter of this season.
Absolutely. One other thing we need to talk about within Perrin's pack is Aviendha herself, the introduction of this Aiel character. And I'm laughing because I think last episode I was kind of going, what's the Aiel again? Just tell me the details of it. And we were talking about Rand's mother being an Aiel and that flashback to her in the battle showing how great a warrior she is. And then next episode, here they are introducing an Aiel, showing you how powerful she is as a warrior. So I didn't need to ask you guys. I should have just waited an episode, basically. But thanks for the explanation last week. It did help out.
Absolutely loved this fight.
Cool.
Like, the Aiel are just fantastic. I really enjoy these characters.
There's one move that I just absolutely love at the opening of this fight when Perrin stands in front of the newly released Aviendha and she just looks at him going, you're not going to protect me. I might protect you, or we can fight side by side. You are not going to be standing in front of me.
Well, she laughs.
Exactly.
Like, I love it. She laughs as she kind of then barges herself to be on a level with Perrin, and then comes out with the great line that I started off the podcast with, do you like to dance?
Absolutely.
And she does feel that Perrin is a pretty good dancer by the end of it.
Do you know what? If this was Strictly Come Dancing, I might actually watch that show. This was the type of dance hilarious. They do. It's a very cool fight and really well put together to show off the style of her as an Aiel. Love that she's breaking arms as she goes, because often in these types of staged battles that you see on TV shows, you see them punch people in the face, they fall over, and then that's the end of them in the fight. But here, quite definitively, she's taking and breaking people's arms so that they can't pick up their weapon and come back at her. So it gives a definitive end to that particular person in the fight. And I think that's important when you're showing the power of a character like this and introducing them. So I thought that was really cool.
And indeed, like you say then, will Perrin's mercy, where he stops her from killing Dain Bornhald, will that play out? How will that play out later in the season? Because it looks to be a fairly important point here, that this character is saved. So and ultimately then we see Aviendha pledging herself to sort of repay this kindness that has been done by Perrin to release her. Like as she says, really kind of, what's your game? A wetlander put me in a cage, and a wetlander has now released me from this cage. So what's going on? But as you say, it's kind of a nice idea that she's kind of become part of his pack and is pledging herself to help go and rescue Loial and the Shenarans.
Yes, pledging her sword to him, which I do like. Another thing I do like about this is because Perrin's only really seen this with the Aes Sedai and their warders. That's his instant impression of what the offer is here from Aviendha. He's kind of going, does that mean we have to have sex? Is that the way we seal the deal on this or something? Yeah. And she plays with them on that, of course. She's like, I wouldn't say no, but we don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And she also, she does mention that they're searching for their Aiel chief, Karakara.
Yes.
So
the chief of chiefs, yeah.
Yes, chief of chiefs. So that would be important to see what that becomes.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. Good stuff in that opening point. I really do like Perrin's story in this episode. One tiny thing that we didn't mention, and I think it was the turning point in the argument between Perrin and Elyas, is he not only says the friends from Two Towers were not your pack, he says your wife also was not your pack. And I think that's the moment when Perrin just broke. He kind of goes, he's very sensitive, obviously, about what happened with his wife. Remember that story of it is that he killed his wife. And he feels responsible for that and carries that weight of guilt on him. So that's almost like Elyas twisting the knife with him. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. Will we go on to our second spoke of the wheel, John?
Yes, because this is Liandrin's pledge to the dark. And I guess it connects in with the first spoke in the sense that little does Perrin realised that Liandrin is taking Nynaeve, Egwene and Elaine through the ways to Falme as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, Perrin's going to get a bit of a surprise when he also probably bumps into and sees Nynaeve and Egwene also.
I think so.
In Falme.
Yeah. It's really hard, isn't it? Because Liandrin told them that they had to go to Falme to save Loial and Perrin and their friends. That's how she got them to leave the White Tower.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that she's bringing them to the Schenchean as a gift for their leader, and is bringing them to Falme, where Loial is. So weirdly, underneath the plot that was there with Liandrin, she actually had pieces of it that were the truth, which I thought was quite odd. That, you know, she wasn't transporting them through the ways to a completely different side of the world. She was actually bringing them towards Falme, where her friends are. So I just thought it was a bit of an odd twist on Liandrin. She, again, last week we were going, definitively, she's working for the Dark One. That is her goal. She's working for Ishmael. Ishmael is working with the Seanchan. And here in this episode, a couple of things that happen certainly change what Liandrin's trying to do here. But again, she's not just this black and white character. She's not just this definitively evil character. She brings them through, has this discussion with Lady Siroth about how they treat people who can wield, people who can access the one power. And that seems to twist Liandrin again on her loyalties to Ishmael, because she frees Nynaeve before leaving. She cuts Nynaeve free, allows her to get away.
Weave to cut the binds that's holding Nynaeve.
Yeah, and
assuming because she is the most powerful, that something will happen.
Exactly. She even says maybe she'll kill Lady Siroth. Yeah.
I mean, I think what's really good about the Dark Friends is that all their own motivations are here at play. I mean, even you see the Lady Siroth and Ishmael, not but wholly harmonious alliance. They have that moment where she really confronts him to say, you need my army. You're here at my invitation.
And it was your plan to go to the village, and I'm taking all the blame.
Yeah.
I've lost some of my power because I did what you asked me to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the same way that with Liandrin here, I think what's really fantastic about Liandrin, and you see it in the ways and you have that great conversation between her and Nynaeve, where she effectively talks about how the Aes Sedai, with all these rules and the rules that she has broken here by using the one power against the three novices, against Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine, is because the humanity of the Aes Sedai unnerved a king many years ago, and all these rules make them predictable and less of a threat.
Absolutely.
And she kind of, in a sense, possibly her journey to the dark is because she doesn't like that. I mean, she is a Red Arja after all, or has been fronting that. So she doesn't take a warder. You know, the perception is the relationship with men is difficult with Red Arja. So I like the fact
they don't need men, is the way that she's explained it before.
Yeah. Like in the ways here, Liandrin tries to justify, these actions, of recruiting Nynaeve for the dark rather than for the Reds. As she says, everyone has a price. Yeah. In her case, it's likely to be her boy.
Yeah.
And I loved Nynaeve saying, sitting in the dark, trying to justify yourself to a woman in the dark who you've kidnapped.
Yes.
It's just this pushback that you can't justify this.
Yeah.
And as Nynaeve says, I will die before I join the dark. So that stubbornness of Nynaeve as a wisdom, whether Liandrin has underestimated that in the same way that Ishmael has, is just really, really good. But like you say, then Liandrin does the sneaky weave. And I just like all that chaos.
Exactly.
The weave is probably going all over the place.
Yeah.
And actually Ta'veren here, in the form of Nynaeve, they are messing with that weave, which everyone is assuming will play out like the prophecies and the ancient manuscripts and so on. So it's really good. You kind of really get that sense here in this episode.
Yeah, so it's so fascinating. And, if there's one thing that Lady Suroth shouldn't have said to Liandrin is that we collar people and make sure they have the right training in order to use the one power. I'm looking forward to putting the collar on you myself. That's instantly the end. It's kind of like, hang on a second, screw you.
Well, she has a great kind of bottom lip kind of sort of movement there as she's kind of trying to internalize her anger.
Absolutely.
At that comment. So it was really good. But ultimately, Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine now will become, the intention here is that they will be gifts for the Schenchean, in order for them to become Damane, effectively.
And those are the collared.
They are the collared channelers who can channel the one power. And they have a Sul'dan who control them effectively and tether them through the one power as well as through a chain.
Yeah, and what we see, we saw that last season when they arrived, because we saw the chained ones were the ones that were controlling the wind, driving the ships of the Seanchan to this world. Here we see it happen because we obviously mentioned it already, but Nynaeve and Elaine get away. Egwene doesn't, but she is collared in front of Turok, the High Lord Commander of the Seanchan. And that collaring was really well done.
Absolutely.
It felt like a real power being used to have her under the control of this Sul'dan who now holds the reins on her. It's almost like when she pushes her down and the whole collar is created across her body, she then attaches a leash to her, like as if she's some kind of dog. It's a really powerful moment for Egwene, another very powerful character in this show.
It is, and it's actually really, really important. It'll be interesting to see how the show sort of captures this, because for me in the books, you get the sense of this dehumanizing of, I think it's Egwene and Elaine that are actually collared in the books, but Egwene in particular, you really, really get the sense of how dehumanized she is, how tortured and abused she is through this collaring and tethering effectively to the Sul'dan, and how they treat them. It's tantamount to slavery. So, it's really brutal for her, and it leaves a huge impression on Egwene.
Right.
And what she does. So I'll be really interested to see that. And I think in the moment where she is being collared and the collar is expanding and the one power connection being established with her Sul'dan, you sense the agony and the pain.
Absolutely.
That goes through that, and that they can inflict on them to do what they want, the Sul'dan, on their demand. So it'll be really interesting to see that. And I mean, the other interesting thing here as well then is you have Nynaeve and Elaine staying here in order to rescue Egwene. That's the intention. I like how the dynamic here, just briefly, as they're going through Falme, with Elaine actually the one talking sense, the one that's kind of, she's the one that's taken the breath to understand what they need to do. And yet Nynaeve is still, treating her as this princess, where she says, oh, are these not elaborate enough? These kind of blankets that they've got on. And it's like, no, we need to be even more toned down. We need to get off the streets. We need to be undercover because, we're going to be, they're going to have search parties out for her, which we find out that Lady Suroth has issued that order to search for them. And, we do see then.
But that's the stubbornness of Nynaeve.
Exactly.
Coming
but
back.
I just liked how it played out here, where actually Elaine is the one speaking sense, but Nynaeve's prejudices of Elaine are still just flowing out, and she has almost no awareness of the danger that they're in.
Absolutely. And she also doesn't know Elaine, in fairness to her. No. Nynaeve has had no real connection with her, just through Egwene becoming friends with her. But she doesn't particularly trust her. She just has that surface level view of who Elaine is. But yes, they are rescued by the warder and the Aes Sedai, who are there and take them in. Rima, I think, is the Aes Sedai, yellow Aes Sedai.
Yes.
And they're telling them they need to be in full cover here because they're being watched at everywhere they go, and they will be captured.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So this was really good. Mm-hmm. I also liked the bit as well with Ishmael where he's been noticed by the High Lord Commander.
Ooh, yes.
And, he's asking these questions, well, you're not of the blood. Mm-hmm. Where have you come from? You've risen very quickly within the court around Lady Saroth.
Yes.
But his gift to him of the Horn of Valere is significant. And as he says, you have gained my notice now. Mm-hmm. You have one question to ask of me, of which, in a sense, he's trying to rehabilitate Lady Saroth in front of him by bringing Egwene here as this very powerful Aes Sedai, even though she's a novice, as this gift for him. So another gift being done here.
And his ask here of Turok is that he accepts the gift in its meaning, takes it from Lady Saroth as well, so trying to get her back into the good graces that she had. Because even after arriving with the Horn, because they went out and took the village, she gets punished for it, as we mentioned earlier
her
on.
long nails sliced off. So I guess a pedicure from hell.
Well, absolutely.
For Lady Saroth.
Yeah, and there's kind of the call out that she has to return to her lodgings until she's presentable again. And I was trying to think in my head, does that mean that she has to wait until her nails grow back out again or not? Is that what presentable means? But in this case, it looks like Ishmael has done his work here to get her back into that position of grace by bringing in someone so powerful as Egwene here.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought this was really good. A lot of the machinations going on here, a lot of the shifting sands as well around, I guess, allegiances that have happened, to the dark, but also within, also by the dark friends, that are in the Seanchan.
Yes. And speaking of that, there's an interesting moment, I thought, from the High Lord Commander where he lays out what their plan is in coming to this land. He says that they're there to unite the people of this land together, to be the leaders of them against the darkness, which I thought was really unusual because it seems like since they're working with Ishmael, even though he's not a leader here, I thought that they were working with the darkness. Am I wrong here?
No, I think it's that the Dark Friends have infiltrated, every different layer of society here. Yeah. And of course, Turok is not the leader here. There is the Empress, as well, that is on the other side of the ocean.
Yes, he's just the High Lord Commander of this group, I guess.
So he's obeying the orders of the Empress of the Schenchean.
But they're not aligned to the Dark One.
No.
Okay.
And I can't quite remember. Chris may know more, but I think and the stuff that relates to the historical figure of Arthur Hawkwing as well, I think. But that's not really been introduced yet. And I know there's various mentions of this historical figure from this world, and how he impacts, in particular, like commoners, and I think it relates to the old blood phrases that are being used here around, that they kind of see themselves as original inhabitants, and that's part of the reason why they're looking to sort of bring this world under one banner rather than this splintered centers of power that you have in the world.
I get you. And the Whitecloaks are saying they're going to come here to Falme to push them back out into the ocean, from whence they came, effectively.
Yeah, well, again, it's like they are, manifesting unpure aspects, I guess, for the Whitecloaks.
Well, in fairness, they're coming in and murdering people in their villages, unless they swear fealty to them and bow the knee to them. And the Whitecloaks probably think that people should be bowing the knee to them and their religious order, I guess. Yeah. So interesting stuff here in Falme. And as we say, this seems like where it's setting up the end of the season is going, as everybody converges there. One thing I thought was a bit odd, though, we do see Loial in the background quite a lot here as he's being held captive there. But since that's kind of the focus of so many people is going to save Loial, I kind of expected like a line from him or something.
Yeah, you would think he would be caged or something, but I think it's more of a prized possession.
Yeah.
Because he is an Ogier. It's almost a trophy and one that they respect and won't chain or cage, but and ultimately he is under house arrest effectively.
And I also feel I might have been wrong about Ingtar being a dark friend, because he's just trapped in the same way as Loial is here. So yeah, maybe I was wrong about that earlier on in the season.
Although very well dressed.
They're very well dressed.
Again, similarly, I mean, they call him a Shanaran lord, so he's kind of been extended that rank and courtesy, you know.
Interesting. I think that's it for Falme for this episode. Obviously, lots more to come in the future episodes in Falme, I'd say. Let's go on to probably one of my favourite points from the episode. Spoke number 3. Rand and Moraine can't get no sleep. Yes. I like that you called this point the red eye flight.
It is the red eye flight. They are not able to go to sleep after fleeing from Lanfear, who recovers very quickly.
She does.
I do really feel sorry here for the collateral damage and, you know, those casualties of war, including the horse that are killed horse by Moraine, which Lanfear does call out as very smart, but unfortunately it leads to the next casualty and collateral damage here as the Milady chap has his head exploded by Lanfear, and then she's like, is there anything slower than a horse? You know, she has to sort of gallop after Rand and Moraine.
Yeah. Another very smart move here from Moraine. Gets the other stable owner to get the horses riding as fast as possible to Tarvalon, but she's takes care of her horses too well. And Lanfear catches up with her.
Yes.
Which leads to another pretty brutal move from Lanfear as she ties her lips together.
Stitches up her mouth. So she won't speak of this moment. Which is part of the strategy that the poor stable hand is trying to do to stay alive. She goes, I won't say anything of this. She's like, no, you won't. As then her mouth, as her lips kind of bind together. Yeah. So she'll never speak again. Yeah. So it was really brutal, but I did kind of like this flight going on and the exposition coming around, you know, sort of being told around this by Moraine to Rand, you know, so he finally understands that the eye of the world, it was actually, he released Ishmael rather than destroying him, and that now he is beginning a process, at least started with Lanfear, of releasing all the other Forsaken, which you know, Moraine does say if all of them are released, there is no hope in the last battle, which here in this episode we do get that called out as Taman Gaiden as well, the name for the last battle.
Okay. All right. I think I missed that one. What I did hear in this episode was Lanfear calling out who all of the rest of the Forsaken are.
That was pretty cool.
So we hear about at least 2 more because we get them named, and we hear about the boys as well, who don't get named, but that seems like about 6 or 7.
Yeah, it seems like that. Yeah, we get Mogdian, who apparently is insane, and Griandel, who is a vain idiot. And then there is mention of the boys. And I have to say, I think at the moment in the books, I haven't come across the other 2, and I've not heard of the boys as to whether they are also part of the Forsaken or whether she was referring to the other 2, Margaret and Griandel. Okay. I just didn't know, so I'm not entirely sure.
I thought she was referring to others, and it made me think the way she was referring to them that they've already been freed as well, that they're somewhere out there in the ether waiting to take their opportunity.
Well, you think that Ishmael would kind of make sure he has, you know, his Forsaken, the other Forsaken around to sort of help his chances, although we do get that really nice moment again in that conversation as Lanfear is coming into Ishmael's dreams, where he goes, "So you're going to betray me?" And she's like, "Obviously."
Yeah, obviously.
So there is that, again, the different motivations of the Forsaken.
Exactly.
And how some of them marry up, some of them don't.
Well, absolutely. That's this whole point, really. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
We find out the motivation of Lanfear was that she lost the Dragon Reborn before. They met, they were together. When he broke her heart, she dedicated herself to the Dark One so that she could get the Dragon Reborn back for herself.
Yes.
And as he's gone, Rand is now the next best thing. Rand is the new Dragon Reborn.
He is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Yes. And this plays into Moiraine's, and, coming out of that conversation with her sister. So again, I really enjoyed that. I think, Anavir is superb. I loved how this conversation, complete opposite to the one from the previous episode.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's like the mending of that wound where, it's actually, again, her sister, not an Aes Sedai, is basically saying, you once told me if I was scared, the idea of monsters, as a young girl, that I was to ask the question, is it true? And she says, can you know beyond any doubt that Rand needs your protection?
I love that.
And
think about a problem from a different way, and maybe the problem isn't as bad as you think it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just like the fact that, she's helping Moiraine to clean her back with all the blood from attacking Lanfear.
Yeah.
But even you get the honesty, from Moiraine, she's in tears ultimately, because when asked the question, who is this boy? What's this all about? She effectively says he needs my protection, and I'm really sorry because I've put this family in great danger by coming back because of who is pursuing us.
Absolutely. And not even just the family. She says, my family and this whole place, the entire city that they're in, could be in danger.
But again, her sister and it's just how the whole scene is acted. It's really powerful, I thought, as she goes, whatever danger you've unleashed or encouraged, it means the world to Bothanis, that you've returned. This kind of human connection of an auntie and a nephew, I just thought was really, really cool. And I just thought it was just done so well that almost, I know you've put us in danger. And in the last episode, I was actually telling you, I don't want you to jeopardize anything of, Bothanis's marriage to the queen. And you've done that. But despite all that, I'm happy that my son is happy that you're back.
Yeah.
Because he really cares for you.
Absolutely. And he hasn't seen you since you were a kid. Yeah.
And so I really like this moment that it gave, as you say, Moiraine that other angle to think on the problem.
Yeah. It's good advice for anybody, really, if you're going through any problems. Have a sit back and have a think about it and see if the problem really exists. Because sometimes we build up problems for ourselves that are actually easily solvable if we just think about them in a different way. I do also think that maybe I'm misreading the situation, but I do think that her nephew created a little connection with Rand there as well. He seemed quite happy that Rand had joined them. And we hear that his marriage may not be for love, that his marriage is for status, and that is all that really matters to his mom.
Yes. So. No, exactly. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, just on both of those things, because what happened in the last episode does bleed a little into this episode where Anavir, when Moiraine comes and Bothanis is really pleased to, see her, and he says, "You're still the same as I remembered." And Anavir just goes, "If a little bedraggled," because she looks like she's being dragged through a hedge backwards.
Like that, yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And even
totally sisters,
and even just before sort of that lovely sisterly conversation between the two, she says, "You seem lost despite your bluster." She's calling out I guess her BS in a bit.
Absolutely.
You know? Well, it's interesting. Maybe there is a connection because the last time we saw the actor who plays Borthanis, he was ultimately a pair of buttocks in Game of Thrones as he was bedding Loras Tyrell, the Knight of the Flowers.
In Game of Thrones?
Yes, in Game of Thrones. So, you never know. Maybe.
Doesn't necessarily have to only play gay characters.
No,
of course,
exactly.
But I just thought there was a little connection there around. Everybody wants Rand. Even Ishmael had him in his bed for a minute. Even though it was Lanfear that was pretending to be Rand. But for a minute there, I was kind of going, hang on a second, Ishmael has really taken a shine to Rand, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, and even Lanfear, I guess, maybe all her plans in terms of infecting his dream world may have been thrown out the window as soon as she saw the abs. She was like,
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll leave that till later.
Well, that's the realization that Moraine comes to, is that they've spent over 3 months together, so she's had ample opportunity. If her intention was to kill Rand, she could have killed him at any time in the real world, could have slit his throat and walked away if that was the plan. So
yes.
Rand doesn't need her protection. Rand has to play up that he is still in love with Lanfear, that he wants this relationship with her, and if he does that, maybe he can be saved. So do love that realization. And that's when he chooses, as she says, it is his choice. He chooses to go into his dreams and join Lanfear on that other plane.
Well, exactly. And I did like that, the kind of the two things that Lanfear is known for is her casual cruelty, which we certainly see in this episode.
Exploding heads and tied mouths.
Yeah, exactly. And the mastery of the Terandriod, the dream world. And so, yeah, there's going to be, I guess at least now, Moraine is going to be feeling really crusty, having to stay awake, for so long.
Yeah, that really felt like a scene from Nightmare on Elm Street to me when Moraine's saying, I'll stay awake, you fall asleep. And Rand goes, but what if you fall asleep? You're exhausted. I was going, oh, Freddy's coming to get you.
Yeah, well, interesting. I'd love to know if part of Freddy Krueger was drawn from these books.
Maybe.
As, this idea of infecting the dream world. I mean, I guess it's quite a long-standing aspect in I guess human civilization and society.
Absolutely. So I must admit I don't even know when these books were written, the Robert Jordan books. I know my brother read them when he was a kid, and I know Chris read them when he was a kid. So there's my homework for next week. Anything else on this final point, John, or any other notes you want to bring in?
A few notes. One is just the horrendously bad hairdo that Borthanis does have.
You have to call it out.
With the wavy kind of cow's lick at the front and then the ponytail at the back. I was just
terrible.
Like, he looked better in Game of Thrones, let's put it that way.
It's almost as bad as that one that all the kids that play football have, where they shave the side of their heads and have a mullet at the back. Awful.
It was pretty, like, and I guess it did give him a sense of foppishness, I think, in some respects.
But you see it from the front and you're going, that's bad, and then you see it from the side and see both that and the ponytail at the back and go, this is the worst haircut possible.
Exactly. The other thing was with Lanfear, as she wakes up from having been stabbed and her throat slit I did like the fact that she just went, bitch.
I thought that was really well done as well, as she pulls all the blood back together and seals her wound in her neck. I thought that was really cool use of the CGI there. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually did like Lanfear's sort of one-worders in this, where with the horse killed in the stables by Moraine, she just goes, clever. And then when Rand finally goes to sleep and appears in the dream world of her making, she goes, finally, finally falling asleep. I did like her one-worders here throughout this episode.
Excellent. I think that's us well covered on the 5th episode of Wheel of Time Season 2.
Definitely, yes.
So we have spoken. John, what overall are your final thoughts on this episode? Did you enjoy it?
I absolutely really enjoyed this episode. I gave this 5 ale dancers out of 5. I just loved the patter of this episode. The chase of Moraine and Rand by Lanfear, and starting to see the dream world coming to life. We did get a sense of that in season 1. But I really liked how more elaborate, it was and how it was indistinguishable, with, Lanfear and Ishmael, even to the point that, when he's woken up, he is almost taken aback.
Yeah.
Because he's fallen for it, because he knows this is one of her, specialties.
Well, yeah. But he is able to manipulate it in the dream. She calls out how good he is because he's talking to her about the fact that she's in love with Rand and puts Rand back in the bed again. And she says, "Oh, you're getting good at manipulating the dream worlds," basically.
Exactly.
So, I thought that was cool.
So I really loved that. Again, I loved, the conversation between Anavir and Moraine. I think these two have just been fantastic in their scenes together.
Yeah.
As with Leandrin and Nynaeve, again,
so
just so good. Yeah. The one thing we didn't mention is Verin returning to the tower and sort of investigating the disappearance of these novices, but doesn't believe any of Leandrin's tale, even though it's really, really well crafted to the point where she's bringing back asparagus from where she was supposed to have been, which is only available from that place at this time of year.
Did you notice that Leandrin's hand was behind her cloak the whole time that she was talking before she opens her bag and shows the white asparagus? I was going, I wonder is she weaving something to put that asparagus in her bag to give her the excuse?
Yeah, and maybe she was, because Verin doesn't believe any of it. And we should have said this in our notes, but there is now, the concern that there are Black Archer in the White Tower, with the investigation that Verin has been doing, checking with the head of the novices, but also seeing that there was potentially a weave of compulsion, a dark weave, being used against another Aes Sedai, that mistress of the novices, suggesting foul play with the sign-off that the three novices were going to Chameleon to Elaine's brother's sort of naming day.
Yeah.
So again, not that little kind of investigative element of it. So all of this, and Perrin's I just thought really good, and getting some of the Aiel into this world as they track along with the Taveran as well. So
absolutely. Kind of cool to see Verin back in the White Tower. I don't know why we didn't mention all this stuff, because we also got the introduction of Yasica, played by Katie Leung, who fans of Harry Potter will know her as Cho Chang from that series as well. So great to see her in here. The minute I heard her voice, it's been about almost 20 years since that series. The minute I heard her voice, I was like, oh, Cho Chang.
Yeah, but this was an episode that was jam-packed with stuff, and that's why I'd give it 5 Aiel dancers out of 5.
Excellent. Totally.
What about yourself?
Yeah, this was such a good episode. Really, really enjoyed it. You even mentioned it when we were watching the episode the second time, John, where you were kind of going, wow, this is almost an hour and 10 minutes long. It's like a movie every single week. The production values on the show, let alone the writing and the acting and all the stuff that's going on, this really feels up to the quality of like Game of Thrones season 4, season 5. It's up to that level for me. Sitting watching these episodes every week, I'm just transported to this world, worried for the main characters, wondering where the big battle is going to come in the future, and the developments of everybody. This idea that everybody is going against their destinies. Everybody has characterizations and motivations that drive them to who they align with, and they may not fully align with who you think they align with. There's loads of great machinations that I'm really, really enjoying in the show, and this episode exemplified that. There was so much going on. Loved it. Really, really looking forward to the rest of this season, the next 3 episodes of the season. But with that, let's go wet our whistle and head on over to the tavern, John.
Yes, fellow wheelies, fellow quizzers, it is the Wheel of Time Tavern Quiz. We are on episode 5, so we do get question 5 for our tavern quiz. And here it is. What aspect of civilization does Elyas Wolfbrother miss?
Of course we were going to give that question.
Of course we were. It is a question from the episode being asked. So, of course, and it links lovely to a tavern.
It does. Links lovely to everything the TV podcast industry is about. Do you want to give the question one more time, John?
Absolutely. What aspect of civilization does Elyas Wolfbrother miss?
Fantastic. Question 5 of 8. Put together the answers to all those questions Email us at the end of the series with all the correct answers to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in the chance of getting your hands on some Wheel of Time goodies. Speaking of feedback, let's find out what our fellow Wheelers have said about this episode.
Yes, we have some email feedback from Elyas von Doom. Good stuff, Victor von Doom, with presenting yourself as a wolf brother for your feedback for this podcast.
Keeping up his name.
Yes, Elyas von Doom says, greeting Wheelers. That was a harsh manicure. Poor horses, poor Egwene. What exactly is Liandrin up to? Is she playing on both sides? I was not happy to see child Eamon Valda. I like the joke about no wolves here. I really hope he gets attacked again. Abdul Salis plays his role very well. To me, the Whitecloaks seem useless. Where is this huge army of theirs? Do they not know what is truly going on in the West? They also seem to have the same inner rivalries as the Aes Sedai. Aviendha and Perrin make a great team. Hoping Moraine doesn't screw up her nephew's wedding plans. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Elyas von Doom. Great stuff, Elyas von Doom, for the feedback. Yes, you got that right. It was indeed a harsh manicure. I think I called it a pedicure, which would of course mean her extended toenails would have been chopped off. So yes,
they'd have a lot of difficulty moving around the world if it was those massive nails on their feet.
Really tough. So yes, thanks for bringing that into your feedback, because it is indeed a harsh manicure. I think, in terms of Liandrin, what is she up to? Is she playing both sides? And I think the same with the rivalries within the Whitecloaks. It's just everyone has their, they're looking out for themselves in many respects. I mean, even the Forsaken, there is shared aims and motivations going on here, but there are also their own personal ones. And it seems that is, that's the great complexity or sort of the insertion of chaos within this, and potentially means that the Dark Friends, the Dark Forces plan doesn't necessarily go the way they believe it will from their prophecies and so on. So it makes for a really interesting show.
It certainly does. On the army of the Whitecloaks, we do hear it here from Eamon Valda that they are heading to Falme to push the Schenchean back into the ocean from whence they came. So I would say we may be seeing the Whitecloak army by the end of the season. It always has felt with this group that there's a smaller group here that are traveling across the lands effectively. So maybe this big army that we're expecting will be coming in Falme later on this season.
Yeah, definitely.
Great stuff. Thanks, Elyas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elyas von Doom.
Yeah, I find it weird calling you Elyas von Doom because we know your name's Victor. But anyway,
exactly.
Let's move on to our other piece of feedback on email from Coffee and Vodka, who says, greetings, fellow Dream Dimension defenders. Where to begin? Another packed episode with much in common with Ahsoka, most majorly being the odds stacked mightily against the light by a well-prepared and organised dark. The difference is that here, it's not one organisation, but many working in tandem in the macro with quite different goals in the micro.
Absolutely.
The most perplexing of these is Liandrin. While seemingly in league with the Dark One and his allies, she's also set Nynaeve and friends up as a spanner in their works. Actively breaking the three rules, she seems out to either dismantle the Aes Sedai or to rule it with new rules all her own. At the same time, she's either in agreement or stopping the wheels turning, or is using the threat of the Dark to set up her own more universal power base, while playing both sides against the middle. Or none of these things. Are we looking at a villain, hero, or anti-hero? With so much going on, it seems a bit silly to obsess over only one aspect in comparison to the more obvious goals of the other bad factions. However, hers is the one most shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
I'd ask your opinion, but Chris would no doubt coyly just say, all shall be revealed. He might even sing it. 5 Liandrin Angels, BDS Rands, and Lanfear Krugers out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. P.S. Gotta love whole hour-long episodes. Totally agree with you. Coffee and Vodka, the hour-long episodes are so good. Really enjoy our sitting down watching this before breakfast.
Absolutely.
Big movie every Friday morning when we get up. It's great.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. Liandrin, at least for me so far in the book, she does seem like a villain of the group from the Two Rivers, as well as to the Aes Sedai, and her allegiance to the Dark, so far, doesn't seem to be questioned as far as I could tell until I started on season 2. And you're right, she's painted, and it may just not have come into the book yet, but here it is shifting sands with her as to what she is doing.
Just suits the situation, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, totally agree with that for sure.
Good stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka, for your thoughts.
Yes, thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka.
I would say Chris would probably coyly sing. I'm not going to tell you read the books, or it'll all be sorted out in the future.
Well, blessed be your eardrums, Coffee and Vodka, for you have not heard the siren of Chris decimating said eardrums.
Aren't we good? Aren't we good? Thanks so much.
Yeah. Good stuff. We also got some Twitter feedback from Matt Murdoch from the Busting Blockbusters podcast, who sent a message saying, "This is mostly for Derek, but the idea of suicide from losing the one power is kind of like drug addiction. Rain is able to cope because she's keeping herself busy, while the suggestion for Loial wanting to kill himself is well explained by Thom in the first season when he talks to Rand about what happened to his nephew Owen after being gentled by Aes Sedai.
Yes.
And Loial is at least slightly mad. The first season demonstrated that with the voices whispering to him as he channeled. The whispers are the madness. Plus his whole accusation of Moiraine and the Aes Sedai in general, as well as his absolute denial of the taint, those dark streaks that we've seen in the weaves when males channel, is a sign to me that his madness has progressed, even if just a bit." Excellent stuff, Matt, and thanks for that feedback. And good reminder around Tom Merrilin and his nephew, because yes, he is not a fan of the Aes Sedai either.
That's true. Yeah. Thanks for that, Matt. That does explain it a bit better for me, a bit more for me, in terms of this idea that the males that channel will eventually kill themselves. So I think I was speculating that could be a rumor, effectively, that the Aes Sedai were using to keep men who channel down. But seems like it's actually more true than we know, because we've already heard about it before. So thanks for the reminder, Matt.
Yep, good stuff. Thanks, Matt, and thank you all our fellow wheelies who have provided their feedback.
Absolutely, yes. And thanks to all of you who've been listening to the episodes for the Wheel of Time podcast season 2.
Yep, just a reminder for all you fellow wheelies, feedback can be sent into us through email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We have our spoiler posts over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. And of course, we are on Twitter, or X, or Y, or Z, or whatever it will be called, at TV Pod Industries.
Yeah, we're not calling it X, because when you say we're on X, that means you're on ecstasy, right? So we're not going to say that.
No.
We will still call it Twitter for at least the next little while. Great stuff. We will be back next week, of course, for episode 6 of The Wheel of Time season 2. Eyes Without Pity is the episode name.
Yes.
Interesting.
Looking forward to episode 6 now. This is feeling epic.
Definitely. Talking about epic, we have mentioned it already, but we are also covering Star Wars Ahsoka each week. Going to be another epic episode of that for episode 6 of that show. And we'll be back to school with the spin-off of The Boys Gen V at the end of the month. And as far as I remember, Loki's coming out on the 6th of October as well. So 4 shows are going to be coming to an end or starting up around the 6th of October.
It is going to be busy.
Yeah, and we're going to the UK to go and watch Manchester Orchestra in Manchester on the 5th of October. So I don't know how we're fitting all this stuff in, but we'll do it.
And we'll be in London on the 15th for NFL.
Yeah, going to see the Ravens play in London. That's going to be good.
Absolutely.
Going to be good.
Cannot wait.
But until then, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Hope you stay with us on TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, good stuff, fellow wheelies, indeed. Remember, until next time, keep watching, keep listening, and keep wheeling.
Bye.
Bye.